You started a business because you believed in something. Maybe it was a product, maybe it was a service, maybe it was just the desperate need to stop trading your time for someone else's dream. And for a while, that belief carried you. It got you through the late nights, the slow days, the moments where you refreshed your bank account hoping the numbers looked different than they did 5 minutes ago. But belief only stretches so far. And somewhere along the way, the gap between where you are and where you thought you would be started to feel less like a challenge and more like a wall. That wall is what we are talking about today. Not the motivational version of entrepreneurship that gets packaged into highlight reels, the real version. The one where you are sitting at your kitchen table at midnight, calculator open, trying to figure out how to make rent, payroll, or inventory work when the math simply does not add up. I want to talk about what actually turns a struggling business into one that generates consistent monthly profit. Not theory, not inspiration, the actual mechanics. And I want to start by being completely honest with you about something most people will never tell you. Before we go any further, there is a program linked in the description below. I am mentioning it now because I want you to have access to it when something I say resonates with you, and trust me, something will. Do not feel pressured. In fact, if you feel like you already have everything figured out, do not even look at it. It is not for everyone, and genuinely not everyone is ready for what it offers. But it is there if the right moment hits you. Now back to you. Here is what Broke Founder actually feels like from the inside. It is not just the money. That would almost be easier to handle if it was only the money. The hardest part is the constant noise in your head. The second guessing. The lying awake at 3 in the morning, running through every decision you made in the past 6 months, wondering which one was the mistake. Was it the pricing? Was it the marketing strategy you changed? Was it that partnership that fell through? Was it you? That last question is the one that really hurts. Because when you are a founder and the business is struggling, it stops feeling like a business problem and starts feeling like a personal failure. Like there is something fundamentally wrong with your judgment, your ability, your worth as a person. And nobody around you really understands that. Your friends and family try to be supportive, but they do not get it. They say things like, just keep going, or it will turn around, and it sounds kind, but it lands hollow because you are not looking for encouragement. You are looking for answers. So let me give you some. The first thing you need to understand is that most businesses do not fail because of bad ideas. They fail because of broken systems. An idea is a spark. A system is what actually keeps the fire going. And most founders, especially early on, are running entirely on sparks. They hustle from one thing to the next, putting out fires, chasing leads, reinventing their approach every few weeks because nothing is sticking. The business feels chaotic because it is chaotic. Not because the founder is incapable, but because nobody sat down and built the actual infrastructure that turns activity into revenue. Think about what your week actually looks like right now. How many hours are you spending doing things that do not directly generate income? How much time goes into tasks that someone else could handle, or better yet, processes that could handle themselves? Business owners who have cracked consistent monthly profit are not necessarily working harder than you. In most cases, they are working inside a structure that multiplies their effort instead of draining it. Here is a number that should stop you cold. The average small business owner works 60 hours a week and generates less profit per hour than they would working a minimum wage job. Read that again. 60 hours a week. Less per hour than minimum wage. That is not a business. That is a trap wearing a business card. The difference between that trap and an actual profitable operation is almost never talent. It is almost never luck. It is almost never even timing. It is leverage. Knowing which actions produce the highest return and building systems around those actions so they run with consistency whether you are in the office or not. Knowing how to price your offer so that every sale actually moves the needle instead of just covering costs. Knowing how to generate demand in a repeatable, predictable way so that revenue becomes something you plan around instead of something you pray for. None of this is complicated once someone lays it out clearly. But while you are inside the chaos, it is almost impossible to see. That is the cruel irony of the struggling founder. You are too busy fighting to see the battlefield clearly. Let me paint a picture of what the other side looks like. Not hypothetically. What it actually feels like when the shift happens. Imagine waking up on a Monday morning and already knowing, before you check a single notification, roughly how much revenue is going to come in this week. Not because you got lucky, not because you ran some massive sale. Because you built a system that pulls in consistent demand, converts it at a predictable rate, and delivers value that keeps customers coming back. Your Monday morning no longer starts with anxiety. It starts with clarity. You look at your numbers not because you are afraid of what they say, but because you are excited to see the machine running. That feeling is not reserved for people who started with money or connections or some secret advantage. I have seen it happen for people who started with nothing. People who were one bad month away from shutting everything down. People who had already tried 2 or 3 different business models before finding the one that worked. The common thread was never their background. It was the moment they stopped guessing and started operating inside a proven framework. And here is what the journey from broke to profitable actually requires you to change. 3 things. 1. Your revenue model. 2. Your acquisition process. 3. Your mindset around money. The revenue model is where most people bleed out without realizing it. If your business is structured so that every dollar requires you to start from zero every month, you are on a treadmill. The goal is to build offers and structures that generate revenue with increasing efficiency over time. Not in a passive income fantasy way, but in a genuine leverage way where the work you do today still pays you next month and the month after that. Your acquisition process is the engine. How do people find you? How do they move from stranger to paying customer? If your answer involves a lot of hoping and posting and crossing your fingers, that is a signal that you have a discovery problem. Businesses that hit consistent monthly profit almost always have a repeatable, measurable way to bring in new customers or clients. They know exactly what actions produce results. They know what metrics to watch. They have stopped confusing activity with progress. And the mindset piece, this one is uncomfortable but necessary. Most broke founders have a complicated relationship with money. They undercharge because they are afraid of rejection. They overdeliver because they feel guilty charging what something is actually worth. They avoid looking at their financials because the truth is too stressful. They make decisions based on fear instead of strategy. Until you address the way you think about money and your own value, every tactical improvement will eventually hit a ceiling. The external work only sticks when the internal work supports it. Here is something counterintuitive. The founders who break through fastest are almost never the ones who just needed more information. The internet is drowning in information. If information alone was the answer, every podcast listener would be running $1 million business. What actually accelerates the shift from struggling to profitable is accountability, structure, and the right sequence of steps applied to your specific situation. That combination compresses what might take years of solo trial and error into months of focused, directed progress. The cost of staying where you are right now is not zero. Every month that passes without a working system is another month of lost revenue, lost time, and lost confidence. If you are currently making $2,000 a month when you should be making $10,000, that $8,000 gap is not just money. That is vacations not taken, stress that does not lift, relationships strained by financial pressure, health affected by constant anxiety, and hours of your life spent grinding in the wrong direction. Multiply that by 12 months and you are looking at a cost of inaction that most people never sit down to actually calculate. And that is what makes the difference between people who actually change their situation and people who stay stuck. The ones who break through are the ones who stop treating the problem like a minor inconvenience and start treating it like the emergency it actually is. Because when you are working 60 hours a week and barely surviving, it is an emergency. You deserve to be honest with yourself about that. The path forward exists. It has been walked by people who started in exactly the spot you are in right now. People who had less experience, fewer resources, and more doubt. The difference was that at some point they made a decision to stop white-knuckling it alone and start moving inside a system that was already proven to work. There is a program linked in the description of this video. I am not going to oversell it to you. Genuinely, if you think you can piece this together on your own through more trial and error, maybe do not look at it. But if some part of what you heard today reflected your reality back to you, if you recognized yourself in the chaos, the midnight math sessions, the gap between where you are and where you know you should be by now, then at minimum, go read what it is about. Not tomorrow, right now while that recognition is still fresh. Because the version of you who finally builds something real does not wait for a better moment. They recognize this one,